Time magazine named Meryl Meisler one of the greatest unsung female photographers of the past century. She has spent decades capturing the energy, eccentricity, and evolution of New York City. Meryl Meisler trained with Lisette Model, documented her Long Island hometown and the city's vibrant nightlife. By day, she worked as a freelance illustrator, and by night, she photographed the legendary disco scene before embarking on a career as an art teacher in Bushwick. Then, after retiring, she began sharing her vast archive, publishing critically acclaimed books such as A Tale of Two Cities, New York, Paradise Lost, Purgatory and Paradise, and Streetwalker. And today, on the Crit House, Meryl Meisler discusses 5 works of art that have influenced her photography, including work from Diane Arbus, Jacques Henri Lartigue, Pavel Chelachu, The Wizard of Oz, and Cabaret.
I have not made my living from photography. I made my living initially as a freelance illustrator, drawing, and then 2 years I had a grant doing photography, and then I was a New York City public school art teacher for 31 years. And although I've been showing my work since almost 50 years now, it wasn't until I retired in 2010 that I had the grace and the time to be a full-time artist. So that's why people see more of my work now.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like back in the day when you were doing the club work? Because was that, I mean, I've heard you talk about it in other interviews with Iberian X, but were you going to the clubs because you were interested in going to the clubs, or were you going to the clubs because you wanted to take pictures of people in the clubs? Like, what was...
Okay, I was going to the clubs because I wanted to go to the clubs.
Yeah.
Because it was fascinating. However, photographically, because I'm not ignorant, I love the work of Versailles, 1930s Paris photographs. When I started clubbing, I was like, I thought this is my Paris of the 30s. And though I did not take my camera all the time, too bad. I'm glad I did when I did. So my main purpose was going out. And most of the time I was going out with a friend of mine, Judy Jupiter, just 2 friends who both like going out. And I was not doing on an assignment. And there were tons and tons and tons of photographers. So I'm really surprised that my work, now that I'm seeing it myself for the first time, most of it, and showing it, is perceived as having a special eye.
But your work seems to be different than theirs somehow.
Thank goodness, because we all have different eyes. Why were there a lot of photographers? There were a lot of paparazzi.
Oh.
People doing an assignment it was a scene, and it was on the magazines and the newspapers, and so people were showing up.
Well, you also would have had a different perspective. You were not trying to take the same pictures that the paparazzi was, were you? Or were you?
I am not a paparazzi. I wasn't there trying to catch the celebrity or even up front. If I happened to be standing next to someone, I asked them, but I didn't run after them. And I photographed the people and the scenes I found interesting.
Right. Well,
but with an awareness of Versailles in the back of my mind. Okay.
It's good to have that motivation back there. So the question came to you to choose, that you had to choose 5 images or 5 works of arts or 5 things that influenced you as a creative person. What was your logic in deciding what your 5 images would be?
Okay, so I just have to clear my throat.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really great question. Like, you didn't say pick your 5 most influential photographs, any work of art that in any form that motivated you. And I just really thought about my gut level things that turn something in my head, make me think about art, make me do art, move me in some way that life-changing.
Well, let's take a look at your 5 images. So we're going to start with The Wizard of Oz, but it's not necessarily The Wizard of Oz that's the thing for you. It's the song, right? Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, yes, the movie was of ours, Judy Garland singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I would stand on I closed my bedroom door. I was the only girl, two brothers, so they had to share a room. I had my own bedroom. Stand on the bed and belt out Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Not once, twice. I had repeated performances through, and my audience loved it. And I think I would even like face the wall and do it. It resonated with me. And I'll just say, we all have different talents and skills that you go for. I love to sing, but I happen to be one of those very rare people who actually cannot carry a tune. I was even, and when I told that to my synagogue has a great chorus, I said I would love it, but I can't carry a tune. And the choir leader said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. People say that." So I joined. She had to counsel me out. I actually really can't carry a tune. It doesn't stop me from loving it. That song and her rendition, it's reached me as a kid. And as a kid who later came out as being queer, it's like, oh my God, like, they say it's like a queer national anthem. Well, it spoke to me when I was like, 5, 6 years old. It lifted me up. It was my first torch song, and it continues. I have a lifelong love of musical theater.
Well,
So
speaking of a lifelong love of musical theater, your second piece is Cabaret.
yes, I had a boyfriend in high school. I think this is 1966. So I'm 15 years old. And he actually got us tickets and we went to see Cabaret with the original one with Joel Grey and
Wow.
was phenomenal. It wasn't my first Broadway play, and I credit my parents for taking the kids to the theater. But the play, the movie, I have seen it so many times in different renditions of it. Most recently, the current one on Broadway, the Kit Kat Club. I've seen them many, many times. Every time, it's like new and all over. And there were many themes that I relate to personally, as you see, I like nightlife, but also speaks to being a Jew. I'm a
Mhm.
Jew. It had a Jewish story about a collective trauma of the Jewish people and war and but love and doing things a little on the side slight way. The outfits, the song, the story, it's it's always fresh to me. It's my favorite, favorite movie. And ironically, or not ironically, the star of Wizard of Oz is, of course, is Judy Garland, and in the movie Cabaret is her daughter Liza Minnelli.
We move away from musical theater and we're going into the is this I assume it's a painting with Pavel
Chelmsford
Feliceau.
going on trips in school, I think probably in high school, to Museum of Modern Art. I remember staring at this painting so often. It's very big, and being lost in it and dreamy about it. This painting captivated me and brought me back again and again about the dream world. Maybe that's the little girl climbing somewhere over the rainbow. Of course, I saw Salvador Dali painted surreal clock images, but I'm thinking, okay, how do I relate this to photography? Well, I mean, do work predominantly in square format, but the composition is there, and any work of visual art, I think every element in it has to work together. Nothing could be removed, or every millimeter has to be important. There's just so much to look and see more. And I could do that now. Little kids in the top right hand corner seem to be in the limbs and
Oh, I didn't even
hide.
see them.
You have to hide. It's hide. You have to hide. It's hide and seek. You have to look inside there and find, seeking for more. Well, it's also use of positive and negative space
Yeah.
and a little bit of mystery in the moment. I mean, you're doing the decisive moment and just dwelling on it for months.
Right. We do now move into the photographic realm and Diane Arbus with this image. Tell us about this and how this is here for you.
Okay, so this is again the Museum of Modern Art. I'm in undergraduate school. I became an art education major. That's only because when I told my parents I wanted to switch it to art, they said only if I got a teaching degree so I could always make a living. And in my fourth year, oh, I had a boyfriend who broke up with me, and he said I wasn't a real artist because I was going to be an art teacher, or studying art education. So I was like, oh. And so on my vacation home, I got myself in this Long Island Railroad, took the ticket up, and went to Museum of Modern Art to look at art. And I probably stared at that hide and seek painting, and then I saw the first photography show I ever saw, and it was the retrospective of Diane Arbus.
Wow.
And it spoke to me. It moved me. You know, I found her photographs compelling. It inspired me to take a photography class next year. And there's so many images, but I guess this one, well, again, it talks about identity because I've always had a strong identity as a Jew. Just something about it. I've always felt this since I remember being conscious. And it's not from my parents and not anything. It just is, and that first of all is in the title, but the relationship of this tall man looking at his parents. Well, in my family, my mother had a cousin. They called him Big Bill. He was like 7 feet tall, and I have all these great aunts and uncles who lived in the Bronx because my family, both sides of my family, from the Bronx, and these little people, and they were always dressed formally like this. You know, you may be sitting out on milk crates outside, but like, you know, Mama would always wear a dress, and Papa would be wearing a suit. You know, and I know the molding I know these apartments, the molding on the walls.
Right.
I I know the furniture. I know their relationship. And I also, as a photographer, I love that it's even the vignette of the shadow around the edges.
Yep.
Like, that wasn't purposeful, purposeful. I mean, it was like the lens was on some wrong setting. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like the image brings you in. And I think it's very sweet. I think it was a sweet story about them. I find them very warm and empathetic. So, and obviously, a major influence of my deciding to take a photography class. And I continue, and I'm back to using black and white film. No matter how many classes I would take on lighting, I like that straight on flash, the way it moves. I love the innocence of this photograph
It's
and
beautiful. It's beautiful.
their relationship.
Well, you see the look in the mother's face, and
Yeah.
it is it's such a parental look. It's a look of concern and care. She really she loves this person, her
Yeah,
son. You can see
they
it.
love and he loves them.
Yeah.
It's their baby boy. And
Yeah.
daddy, yeah, you little son, who's not, just like I said, my parents said, yeah, you go study yours, as long as you got teaching degree, like, okay, you're making a living as a sideshow. It's like, okay, what else? You know, it's a relationship, and they're so dignified.
Well, Meryl, that's a great 4 images, and we're going to finish off with Jacques Henri Lartigue and
So,
his brother.
yeah, so I went to University of Wisconsin, Madison. I started as an art education major and switched into art. But I took photography class with Professor Cavalliere Ketchum. And Cavalier is a documentary photographer, and he'd show us the great documentary photographers, WPA, the FSA, all the classics. When he showed the work of Jacques Henri Lartigue, who is someone who was a painter, and later on, when he was in late upper 60s, the world started seeing his photographs that he took as a child growing up in a well-to-do family in Paris. This and many of his photographs is a photograph of his family, and it's his brother named Zizou, Zissou, and it was in Rouzette, France, 1911. And he's just so deadpan, comic, straightforward in his outfit, in this strange pool getup. is he wet on the bottom with his legs? It's just such a funny position. And he's looking straight at the photographer, and he's wearing his watch. They didn't have waterproof watches. I don't think so. And his dress suit, and all his photographs of his family are so loving and so funny. There's hilarity, and they're dressed up in their costumes, which is just the fashion of the day. And it gave me the inspiration that on my return home from school on vacations, I started photographing my friends and family and myself because they're really funny people. And Lartigue gave me permission to make funny photographs, or it's like the relationships. You're not making fun of, you're having fun with.
No, you're appreciating the humor in the world you live in. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. The world's rough, but somehow humor helps survival. And the people I knew and loved were very funny people. And so I started photographing them. So I'd say that my work, my major influences in my photography was the fact that my dad took pictures, and so my grandfather, I probably more than the average dad, and then seeing the work of Arbus, inspired by Lartigue, and then the intrigue of Versailles set me on a path.
So Meryl, five great things to talk about, and again, we just met this discussion, but I have heard you speak before, and I feel like I've learned more about you in this discussion by sort of like hearing about how you came to those things, by seeing through your eyes those things that are meaningful to you. So I really thank you for sharing it.
Well, thank you for inspiring me to think about what would be the five.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you all for watching The Crit House.